here's the thing. In Modern Family, if there's one specific joke that I think will always make sense, it's that Claire hates Dylan, Dylan being Haley's boyfriend, her first boyfriend. Claire can't stand him, okay? Claire, she tries, but if there's one thing that makes sense about Claire, it's that she thinks that her daughter can do better because Claire sees all the worst parts of Dylan. Because how can Claire not see all the worst parts of Dylan when Claire is kind of honed in on the worst parts of men because of the husband that she has. But, without bringing Phil into the picture, Claire sees the worst parts of Dylan immediately upon meeting him. A, he's a rocker. Not an ideal first boyfriend for your daughter to have. B, the first date that they're going to have that Claire knows about is that Dylan's coming over to watch movies with Haley in her bedroom with the door closed. Which is stupid parenting on Claire's part, 100% yes, because why would you allow your child to have the door closed with a lover or a person that you might be in a relationship with? That was just number one rule of no in my household. Now the issue there is that if Claire says no to this, there's a chance that Phil might still say yes. Because Phil loves to prove Claire wrong and make Claire seem like the bad guy. So Haley would go to Phil and be like, Dad, Mom says that I have to have the door closed to my boyfriend here. And then Phil would be like, what? No, I'm team door closed. And then the entire time he'd be really uncomfortable with the concept of what they could be doing in there. I'm actually kind of shocked that that episode didn't happen, now that I'm thinking about it. But here's the thing. Continuing forward. I did something really stupid. And I was starting to make my coffee, so I made the espresso, but then my dogs were like, hey, did you realize it's 3:30? And I'm like, did not realize it's 3:30. Oh, that's annoying, because 3:30 is when they eat. So then I was like, I will just feed you really quickly. And then I remembered that I actually have to watch them eat, which I don't know why I would forget. It's a continued thing. You have to watch them eat. Why do you have to watch them eat? Because Muffy might try to steal Max's food if Max decides that he's not super hungry at that exact moment, because Max decides that he has to poop sometimes before he can eat. It was an entire thing. So anyways, then the espresso was like fully cooled down. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to microwave this, which like isn't a bad thing to do. But then I put the dogs out and then I brought them back in and then I microwaved it again. And microwaving it once, whatever. Microwaving it twice, it just smells like Starbucks coffee. So burnt is to say burnt. But anyways, continuing on. So Claire sees all the worst parts of Dylan when first meeting him, and Dylan shockingly is continuously trying to be really, really, really polite to Claire. Dylan not only wants to be polite to Claire, Dylan has a deep respect for Claire that comes out stupidly. He talks about how hot Claire is. He talks about how she still has a rocking body at her age, which is to say that he is, you know, when you're like in your first job, like your first kind of corporate-y job, and you're talking to your boss, and your boss is laid back, and then you say something where you realize just how stupid you are as a person to have said that to your boss. It's that kind of thing. It's Blair Waldorf kissing the Yale professor on the cheek at the end of her Yale college interview. That, okay? Just like the worst decision that you could possibly make because you're new to this type of thing. So we see that Dylan has no social skills, and specifically no social skills when it comes to Claire. Is he a super popular guy at school? Yeah. How can we figure that? Because Haley's dating him, and Haley is a super popular girl at the school. That we know for a fact. But Dylan is polite to Claire. He's polite enough to Phil. He's actually quite polite to Phil, but like, so on my last video discussing Dylan, where I was like, I think that a part of like why Dylan tries to stay back from Phil is because he kind of sees how badly that Phil treats his wife. And someone was like, that feels like a reach. It feels like a reach to say that that's the reason. And I'm like, A, it's subtext. And B, I'm not even saying that Dylan knows that that's why he stays back. I am saying that sometimes you see a kind of guy or person, someone else, and like you can't fully pinpoint the reason that you don't want to hang out with them, but you kind of are just like, oof, I'm good with you, thanks though, no. Like, you know, you can't pinpoint it, but you see it. That. Okay, let's see how this is before I like put all this stuff away. Oh, it's fine. It tastes exactly the same as my usual coffee. Actually, I might have added too much chocolate. Oh well. Anyways. So, my friend Benji, my darling friend Benji asked me, hi Benji, to make this video, and I was like, bet, I'll do it right now. I didn't think any of this through. This will be a 2 to 3 parter. Claire hates Dylan because Claire was always gonna hate Dylan because Claire thinks that Haley can have the best. Claire doesn't know how to voice that she thinks that her daughter can have the best, but she at least thinks that her daughter can have better than Dylan. Because Claire is seeing Dylan for what he really is, especially at that time, which is someone who's going to be kind of stuck, kind of stagnant. And we do see that Dylan in his later life is kind of stuck and is kind of stagnant, but his stagnance doesn't mean that there's not growth. Now, when I say stagnant, I mean that he's always going to have that same personality. He's always going to be a little dumb. He's always going to be a little not there. But he is someone who stopped wanting to be a rocker and started being a nurse, which is a really different step in his life. He's still doing the same thing, which is helping people and healing them. In his opinion, he says it, his words, not mine. When he was a rock star, he was healing them with music. Now he's a nurse and he's healing them with medicine. But that to be said, that he's still the same exact Dylan that he always was, because there's not a lot of change that a character like Dylan can really have, that a person like Dylan can really have. And Claire saw that and was seeing too much of the Phil in him, which is to say that he's kind of goofy and kind of stupid, and not always full of thoughts. And so she doesn't want that for her daughter. But what Claire misses, and what Claire will always miss, unfortunately, in the same way that Phil will always miss certain things, or not Phil, in the same way that Jay will always miss certain things with Phil, even though I highly support Jay not liking Phil. That being said, Claire's never going to be able to see the good parts of Dylan, because to be able to see the good parts of Dylan, she has to fully admit that A, she was wrong, and that B, he has grown. And that the most important thing about Dylan is that he has a deep, deep, deep love and respect for Haley that never goes away, never gets questioned, never even looks in another direction. He is all for Haley, and that's all he's got. And Claire can't fully see that, because to be able to see that would be to see that Claire might also deserve that type of love that she maybe doesn't get from her current husband. I don't know if more can be said after that, but we'll see if more can be said after that. Anyways, bye, Bungie. Okay, bye.